2 months after burying my wife of 25 years, I stood at a courthouse and married another woman. 6 weeks later, I sold the house my first wife loved more than anything and spent nearly $200,000 on a gift for a billionaire I barely knew. If you think you know how this story ends, I promise you, you don't. Before we begin, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you is something I've never shared with anyone. Stay until the very end, because the twist in this story changed everything I thought I knew about grief, love, and the people who prey on broken hearts. My name is Frank. I'm 52 years old, and I teach 7th grade history at a public school in Ohio. For most of my life, my story was beautifully ordinary. I met Margaret when we were both 24. She was a nurse at the hospital where my father was recovering from a heart attack. I remember watching her check his vitals, the way she spoke to him with such kindness, making jokes to ease his worry. When she left the room, my father looked at me and said, "That's the kind of woman you marry, son." He was right. We married a year later. Our life wasn't glamorous. Teacher salary and nurse wages meant we couldn't take fancy vacations or drive expensive cars. But we had enough. We had our small 3-bedroom house with the blue shutters that Margaret painted herself. We had Friday movie nights and Sunday morning pancakes. We had 25 years of inside jokes and comfortable silences. We never had children. It just never happened for us, and after a while, we stopped trying. We were enough for each other. Then, on a Tuesday morning in March, Margaret woke up with pain in her abdomen that wouldn't go away. She'd been feeling tired for weeks, maybe months, but she always blamed it on long shifts at the hospital. Nurses don't take care of themselves the way they take care of others. By Thursday, she was in the ER. By Friday, we had the diagnosis: pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctor gave us a timeline of 6 to 12 months. We got 3. I won't torture you with the details of watching someone you love disappear in front of you, the way cancer steals them piece by piece until you're caring for someone who looks like a stranger. The final weeks were in hospice. She died on a Saturday morning in June, holding my hand with sunlight coming through the window. Her last words to me were, "Don't stop living, Frank. Promise me." I promised. I had no idea what that promise would cost me. The funeral was packed. Margaret had touched so many lives as a nurse, and our small community showed up to say goodbye. But when everyone left, I walked into our house and the silence nearly killed me. Every room screamed her absence. Her coffee mug still sat by the sink. Her reading glasses were on the nightstand. Her smell still lingered on the pillows. I went back to work after 2 weeks because I couldn't stand being in that house alone. My principal said it was too soon. She was right. I stood in front of my students and forgot what I was teaching mid-sentence. I found myself crying in the supply closet during lunch. But going home was worse, so I stayed at school as long as I could. A teacher friend suggested I try a grief support group at the community center. I didn't want to sit in a circle with strangers and share my feelings, but I went because the alternative was staring at the walls of my house until I lost my mind. That's where I met Victoria. She was sitting across from me in that circle, a woman about my age with auburn hair and sad green eyes. When it was her turn to share, she talked about losing her husband, Richard, to a heart attack 6 months earlier. She described the same crushing loneliness, the same empty house, the same feeling that the world had moved on while she was stuck in place. After the meeting, we talked in the parking lot for an hour. Then we went for coffee. Then coffee turned into dinner. Within 2 weeks, we were seeing each other every day. She understood my pain in a way no one else could. She didn't judge me for crying or for the days when I couldn't get out of bed. She held my hand and told me it was okay to be broken. Looking back now, I can see how fast it moved, how desperate I was for someone to fill the void Margaret left. But in that fog of grief, Victoria felt like a life raft in an ocean that was drowning me. 6 weeks after Margaret's death, Victoria stayed over at my house for the first time. It felt wrong, like I was betraying Margaret's memory. But Victoria assured me that Margaret would want me to be happy, that moving forward wasn't the same as forgetting. 2 months after Margaret died, Victoria suggested we get married. She said life was too short to wait, that we'd both learn that lesson the hard way. My rational mind knew it was insane. My family would be horrified, but my grieving heart wanted to stop hurting, and Victoria promised me we could heal together. We got married at the courthouse on a Thursday afternoon. My sister refused to come. My best friend told me I was making a mistake. I ignored them all. Victoria moved into the house immediately, and that's when things started to feel wrong. She rearranged Margaret's furniture. She packed up Margaret's photos and put them in the attic. When I protested, she said we couldn't build a new life while living in a shrine to the old one. Maybe she was right. I didn't know anymore. Then one night, about 3 weeks into our marriage, Victoria sat me down with a glass of wine and said we needed to talk about the house. She said living there was keeping me trapped in the past, that every room reminded me of Margaret, and I'd never truly move forward unless we made a clean break. She suggested we sell it and buy something new together, something that would be ours, not mine and Margaret's. Part of me wanted to fight her on this. Margaret had loved that house. We'd painted every room together, planted the garden, fixed the porch steps ourselves. But another part of me, the part that woke up crying every morning, thought maybe Victoria was right. Maybe I needed to escape the ghost of my old life. I agreed to sell. We listed the house in September. It sold in 3 weeks for $340,000, more than I expected, enough to buy something nice and have money left over. But Victoria had other plans. She started attending every charity event, every fundraiser, every gala within a 50-mile radius. She bought expensive dresses and dragged me along and rented tuxedos. I didn't understand the sudden social climbing. When I asked, she said we needed to expand our horizons, meet new people, build a better life. At one of these events, a fundraiser for children's literacy, we met Patricia Beaumont. Patricia was impossible not to notice. She was a tall black woman in her early 60s, elegant and commanding, the kind of person who fills a room just by entering it. She was the keynote speaker that night, and when she took the stage, the entire ballroom went silent. She talked about growing up in the foster care system, bouncing between homes, never feeling like she belonged anywhere. Then she met a teacher, Mrs. Helen Brooks, who saw something in her. Mrs. Brooks tutored her after school, helped her apply to college, gave her books and encouragement and hope. Patricia credited that teacher with changing the entire trajectory of her life. She built a luxury real estate empire from nothing, becoming one of the wealthiest self-made women in the country. And now she was using that wealth to build schools and libraries in underserved communities, trying to be for other kids what Mrs. Brooks had been for her. I was moved to tears. As a teacher, her story resonated with me in a way nothing had since Margaret died. After her speech, Victoria somehow managed to get us into the private reception, and we ended up talking to Patricia directly. She asked what I did for a living. When I told her I taught middle school history, her face lit up. She wanted to know everything. What I taught, how I engaged students, what challenges I faced. We talked for 30 minutes about education and kids and the power of teachers to change lives. She was warm and genuine and treated me like an equal, despite the fact that she probably made more in a day than I made in a year. Victoria watched our interaction like a hawk. On the drive home, she couldn't stop talking about Patricia, her wealth, her influence, her connections. I should have seen the warning signs then. Over the next few weeks, Victoria became obsessed with Patricia Beaumont. She researched everything about her, followed her foundation's work, found out what events she'd be attending. Then Victoria came to me with an idea that made my stomach turn. She discovered that Patricia collected antique timepieces, rare grandfather clocks specifically. There was one coming up for auction, an 18th century piece from France, estimated to sell for around $180,000. Victoria wanted to buy it and gift it to Patricia. I laughed. I thought she was joking. We were public school teachers with a house sale windfall. We weren't the kind of people who bought nearly $200,000 gifts for billionaires. But Victoria wasn't joking. She said this was an investment in our future, that Patricia could open doors for us, introduce us to opportunities we'd never have access to otherwise, that wealthy people appreciated grand gestures, and this would show Patricia we were serious players. I said no, absolutely not. That money was supposed to buy us a new house, start our new life together. Victoria cried. She said I didn't trust her judgment, that I was still living in the past, thinking small like I had with Margaret, that Margaret had kept me trapped in mediocrity, but Victoria was trying to give us something more. Mention of Margaret like that, the contempt in her voice, Should have ended things right there, but I was still so lost, so confused, so desperate to make this new marriage work, because admitting it was a mistake felt like failing Margaret's memory all over again. I bought the clock at auction for $183,000. We presented it to Patricia at another charity event 2 weeks later. I'll never forget the look on her face when she opened the card and understood what we'd done. It wasn't gratitude, it was confusion, then concern, then something close to pity. She pulled me aside, away from Victoria and the crowd. She asked me point blank why I would spend that kind of money on her, a woman I barely knew. I stumbled through Victoria's reasoning about networking and relationships and investments in our future. Patricia looked at me for a long moment, and I saw sadness in her eyes. She said, "Frank, I'm going to tell you something important, and I need you to really hear me. I don't need your money. I don't need expensive gifts. And anyone who convinces you to spend your late wife's house money on impressing a stranger doesn't have your best interests at heart." She handed the card back to me and said she couldn't accept the gift. She said Margaret built that home with me, and I needed to honor her memory properly, not throw away what she left behind, trying to impress people who don't need impressing. Then she walked away, leaving me standing there with a nearly $200,000 clock and the sinking realization that I'd made a terrible, terrible mistake. The drive home was silent. When we got to the rental apartment we'd moved into after selling the house, Victoria's mask finally slipped. She exploded, screaming about how I'd embarrassed her, how I'd ruined everything, how Patricia had disrespected us. I tried to calm her down, but she kept going. And in her rage, the truth started spilling out. She admitted she'd known who I was before the grief support group. She'd seen Margaret's obituary, had looked up property records, knew the house was paid off and worth significant money. She'd targeted the support group specifically to meet widowers with assets. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Everything, every kind word, every shared tear, every promise of healing together had been a lie. She'd seen a vulnerable man with something to take, and she'd taken it brilliantly. I asked about her husband, Richard. She laughed. There was no Richard. She'd never been married. This was what she did. She found grieving widowers, married them quickly before they could think straight, and convinced them to liquidate assets. I left that night with nothing but my car and the clothes I was wearing. I stayed on my principal's couch for a week while I figured out what to do. Here's the part that probably saved my life. Patricia Beaumont reached out to me. I don't know how she got my number, but she called and asked if I was okay. When I broke down and told her everything, she didn't judge me. She said grief makes us vulnerable, and there are people in this world who hunt the vulnerable. She connected me with a lawyer who specialized in fraud cases. We discovered Victoria had done this to at least 4 other men in the past 3 years. The lawyer managed to get the auction house to take the clock back with only a 10% loss. I got most of the money back. Patricia also helped me understand something crucial. Margaret's last words weren't permission to make stupid decisions. They were a reminder that life continues, that love continues, but that moving forward doesn't mean abandoning everything that came before. I'm divorced now. The whole marriage lasted less than 4 months. I live in a small apartment and drive the same old car I had when Margaret was alive. I took the money from the house sale and created an endowment for the school library in Margaret's name. Every book purchased with that fund has a bookplate that reads, "In memory of Margaret Foster, RN, a life of service and love." Victoria disappeared after the divorce. I heard she moved to another state, probably looking for her next target. As for Patricia, she became an unexpected friend. Not the kind of friend Victoria wanted to use for social climbing, but a real one. She came to the library dedication. She still calls every few months to check on me. She's teaching me that good people exist in this world, even when you've been burned by the bad ones. I'm not remarried. I'm not looking. Maybe someday, when I'm truly healed, when enough time has passed that I'm not so vulnerable. But for now, I'm okay being alone. I'm teaching my students. I'm honoring Margaret's memory the right way. And I'm learning to forgive myself for the mistakes I made in the fog of grief. If you're watching this and you've lost someone, please hear me. Grief makes you do things you wouldn't normally do. It clouds your judgment and makes you desperate for anything that stops the pain. There are people who know this and will use it against you. Protect yourself. Don't make permanent decisions in temporary pain. Honor the people you have lost by being smart about the life they left you. And if you've learned something from my story, if it resonated with you or made you think differently about grief and moving forward, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel because I'm going to keep sharing real stories about real life, the messy parts we don't usually talk about. Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts. Have you experienced grief? Have you seen people taken advantage of in vulnerable moments? Let's talk about it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for not judging. And remember, the people who truly love you want you to heal at your own pace, not on someone else's timeline. Take care of yourselves out there.